All right, all right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior Podcast Fantasy Edition. I am your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 57 from a fantasy app perspective. If you're new to the show, you know that we'll be breaking down PrizePicks, we'll be breaking down Underdog Fantasy, Monkey Knife Fight, and then we'll see how we're doing on time. Maybe I'll do a quick DraftKings run through. My guy QRX in the chat. Thank you for pulling up, brother. Let's go. I'm hyped for the Monkey Knife Fight charts. Yes, I have those up and ready. Those are already in the description of this video for anybody who wants to use them before or after this stream. The link to both the sheets for Monkey Knife Fight and PrizePicks are up there. And I've still got to add the Underdog Fantasy sheet, but it'll be up there as well. So those are there for you guys for free if you want to use it while you're filling up your app. But anyways, let's just get into this, right? So last week was a pretty trash week for me in terms of fantasy apps. Did terrible on DraftKings, did good on PrizePicks, and did poorly on Monkey Knife Fight. Very poorly. I haven't had a good week there except other than my first one. And yeah, so if anyone's new here, the way we do it is we start with PrizePicks. I'll pull up that chart now. So that set of charts. And if you've never used PrizePicks before, what it is it's an app that allows us to bet on certain props for fighters that wouldn't be available on most books. I know DraftKings started offering things like who's going to get more takedowns in this matchup and stuff in certain states. It doesn't offer that in my state, of course, because who likes New York apparently? But for the most part, there aren't many books that offer that kind of stuff. Whereas you can go on any book really and bet Trey Young to get a certain amount of points, but you can't go and say all right, I want to bet Armin to get 3 takedowns. There's nothing like that. So PrizePicks allows us to do that. The one catch is you got to parlay it. You got to pair them up in pairs of 2 or more. I never go past 2. Obviously your reward increases if you go past the 2, but I don't like going past 2. I just play that. I just play it like that. So real quick, there are 4 different categories. There is fight time, which this is available on books, and that's why if you've ever watched my show before, I don't like this section. I try to get through it quickly because I never really play it. I just feel like you can already do this on the book, so unless it's a really good spot, there's no reason to do it. And then after that, we'll have significant strikes. This is a lot of fun. I have my angle that's actually hitting this week, so we'll be talking about that there. Then there's the fantasy score under the PrizePicks scoring criteria, which is different from DraftKings in a few really important ways. So we'll go over that when we get there. And then lastly, just takedowns, pretty basic. Sometimes my favorite, sometimes I don't even touch it. So let's see what happens. I honestly haven't gone too into depth yet so far in these. I've only picked 2 spots so far, and that's the Nurmagomedov under on the significant strikes and the over on Jinu Frey's takedowns. So, but I'll explain those once we get there. So starting from the top, we've got fight time. And for the first fight, it's Batista versus Kelleher. And they've got the line set exactly as it is on the books, 12.5 minutes, 2.5 rounds. You got Batista. He's gone over this 2 of 5 times in the UFC. Kelleher in his last 10, he's gone over 4 of 10 times. And personally, I think this fight doesn't go the distance. I'm curious in betting that on the books, but I am not going to be playing it here. Is it the worst play to go under? No, I wouldn't blame you, but like I said, not my thing. Oberg Nchukwi, 10 minutes is what they've set it on here. The books have it at 7.5. And you look at Oberg, he's only crossed that 10-minute mark 1 time in 3 fights. And Nchukwi has crossed that mark 4 times out of 5 fights. So 80%. We got kind of opposites here, right? Nchukwi almost always going the distance in the UFC, or at least close. And Oberg, not so much. But only 3 fights, small sample size. So personally, I think this one probably goes over. But if you're going to play over, just go on the books, right, and play the over there. Unless it's minus 200 or something, which I don't think it is. So I wouldn't play that here. Curtis versus Vieira, they've got it set at 6 minutes. The books have it at 7.5, 1.5 rounds. You look at Curtis, he's covered this 2 of 3 times, so 67%. And Vieira's covered this 3 of 4 times, so 75%. And honestly, I thought it would be the opposite for these guys. These two are hitting this over most of the time. I thought it would be the opposite, considering their fight doesn't go the distance. Prop on the sports books is minus 750, right? So that almost doesn't make sense. I guess you can consider the playing under 6 minutes, but I just wouldn't touch it. Nurmagomedov versus Nate Maness. So PrizePicks has it at 9.5 minutes. The books have it at 7.5, 1.5 rounds. And you look at Nurmagomedov, he's hit this 0 of 2 times on the over, and Maness has only gone over 1 of 3 times. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is under. At least the 9.5 gives you more room than the 7.5 on the books. So I wouldn't blame anyone if they wanted to play this one. And I like it, too, because it covers 2 things, right? It covers both outcomes of Nurmagomedov getting a finish or Maness sparking him with a lucky shot, right? Because I personally think that's his best bet is some lucky strikes and a KO. Otherwise, I don't see him winning. So I wouldn't hate the under there. Maybe I'll get there, but I don't really play that stuff, like I said. Moises versus Giagos, they've got it set just like on the books, 12.5 minutes, 2.5 rounds. You look at Moises, and he's covered this 6 of 9 times, so 67%. And Giagos has covered this 5 of 10 times, so he's covered 50% of the time. And, yeah, look, I think this one's tough because I kind of wanted to bet fight doesn't go because I kind of see Moises either subbing Giagos or maybe knocking him out. But then I don't really see how Giagos gets a finish, right? So why not just Moises inside the distance? So that's a different conflict in my head now. But in regards to here, I just feel like it's not worth hitting because I feel like Moises is the only one live for a finish. If I saw a path for Giagos, I'd say maybe let's go under here. But that's probably why I'm not betting the fight doesn't go on a sports book either, because why bet it if you think it's one-sided? Then just bet Moises inside the distance, right? So we'll move right along. We're going through the time props much quicker than we normally do, which is very good because I feel like I always waste too much time talking about these, and I don't even play them. I just talk about them hoping maybe if someone else plays them, I can help. But at the end of the day, I feel like why talk about it that much if I don't believe in playing them too much? So hopefully we can save time for the more fun stuff, or the stuff I like more at least. But moving on, we've got Badeau versus Parisian, and they've got the set at 10 minutes, 2 rounds. The books have it at 7.5, 1.5 rounds. And you got Badeau, who's gone over this only 1 of 3 times, and Parisian, who's gone over this 3 or 5 times. Look, I kind of think Badeau's live for a KO. I'm going to be eyeing that prop, but I wouldn't play this. These are 2 low-level heavyweights. Good chance they go over the 1.5 at least. I feel like that's a decent spot on the books, but nah, just no. Next up, we've got Rakhmonov versus Magny. They've got it. PrizePicks has it set at 11.5 minutes, and the books have it set at 12.5, 2.5 rounds. You look at Rakhmonov, he's never covered the over here. Magny on the other side, polar opposite. He's covered 8 of 10 times. So big differences there, but who's going to impose their kind of fight here? I feel like it's probably going to be Rakhmonov, right? I see him winning. I went into this wanting to bet Magny, came out of it saying, no way, Jose. Yeah, I lean under here. I lean a finish for Rakhmonov, but I'd rather just play Rakhmonov inside the distance, which I did. So, and then lastly, we got Sarukian versus Gamrot, 22.5 minutes, 4.5 rounds, just like it is on the books. And then you look at these 2 guys. So neither of them have ever had a 5-rounder, so we don't have numbers for this. But if you look at their how many times they've gone to decision, Arman 4 of 6 times in the UFC, so 67%. Meanwhile, Gamrot only 1 of 4 times, 25%. You got to think that these 2 are probably going to go to decision. I mean, we're looking at 2 top-tier prospects in the UFC. So you kind of, like, I personally have to think that the fight goes. I know Arman's calling for a round 4 knockout. I can't envision it. Like, I can't game it out in my head how that's going to happen. So I'm not going to personally take his word on that. So I think the fight goes, but I'm not going to play that. But now we're going to move on to significant strikes, something that I actually like playing. So the way I look at this stuff is, first of all, significant strikes are normally only counted on the feet. They do count them on the ground, but I'm learning that it's only when like the person's really winding up. And I think it's only when they're landing in the face, because I'm not seeing body strikes on the ground being counted as significant strikes. I'm not seeing most strikes from top on the ground getting counted. So that's something I'm looking for, right? If if I know somebody's like a blanket wrestler, like I don't want to call Nurmagomedov a blanket wrestler because he can finish and whatnot, but he kind of is when he's not striking. So sorry, blanking. But anyways, that's the kind of angle there, because if you're betting on a person who's going to blanket wrestle, they're not going to be getting a lot of opportunities for significant strikes. So because of that, I like to bet their unders. And then it also helps if they do spinning or funky moves such as, question mark kicks, spinning kicks. And who checks off both of those things on this list? It's Nurmagomedov. And add to that he's also so dominant that he might not even need 38.5 strikes to win the fight. In fact, he's already won 2 fights and hasn't covered either one. So I really, 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 really like Nurmagomedov under here. That's like probably my favorite play. I feel like it's going to be hard for him to go over this. I feel like he's going to win. I feel like he's going to win by grappling. And on the feet, he just doesn't have the hand output to cover this. I don't see it happening. And 38.5 kicks, I don't see that happening either. So I like Nurmagomedov under big time, but we'll start from the top of the list now. So here we got Jinyu Frey. They've set her at 45.5. She's covered this 1 of 4 times, and that was her most recent fight against Ashley Yoder. So I lean under here, and I lean under because I expect Jinyu Frey to be on top. And like I just said, they don't really count significant strikes from top much on the ground. So if Jinyu Frey's on top, right, I expect her going to takedowns. I expect Demopoulos to be dropping to her back because that's the only place she's getting subs. Demopoulos has 4 submissions all off her back. So I just see Jinyu Frey staying safe in the guard over 3 rounds, landing ground and pound. But do I think it's going to be 45.5 significant strikes? Probably not. I do lean under. Will I play it? I don't know. Because if they do end up on the feet, I feel like they could probably cover this. Both women throw tons of flurries, but I don't know. I'm leaning under here. Let me make sure to write that. All right. Moving on, we got Bautista. They've set him at 68.5. He's covered this 2 of 5 times, 40% of the time. And I'm hesitant here because I just don't really know what kind of fight to expect, right? I think that this is going to be greasy, grimy, dirty. It's not going to be a clean striking battle that Bautista probably needs to get to get a KO. I don't think he's going to get that. Can he finish Kelleher in a chaos fight? Yeah, I'm sure he can. He's got those knees. He's got a ton of explosiveness. He does have good hands. I don't know. What if Kelleher gets wrestling going? What if Kelleher gets a sub? What if Bautista finishes Kelleher early? We're not going to get to the 68.5. It's kind of a high number. Not really, but I don't know. I'm not really feeling it here. I don't want to test Kelleher's chin with this. Like, I don't want to trust it. He's got to hold up to 68.5 strikes from Bautista in order for this to hit. I don't know. I kind of lean under, but I'm not going to play this either way, and I don't suggest doing that. Then you got JP Buys, 37.5. He has never covered this in 4 fights. But that's also because he barely ever – I think he's only gone to decision 1 time. It was against in his most recent one. I want to say Montel Jackson, right? And then before that, he wasn't going the distance. So he wasn't really getting the shot to he wasn't really getting the chance to hit this number. But can he do it over 3 rounds of dirt in? It's hard to tell, and that's why I'm not going to play it. We just don't have enough background. I lean yes. I lean that he will cover this. 37.5 isn't high. It's a bit high for grapplers, but like, what happens when you got 2 grapplers half the time, right? They end up in a stand-up battle. And if they're standing up, 37.5 doesn't sound too crazy for either fella. You look at Durden, he puts out a great output. So if Bi's going to keep up with them, he's going to have to put up these numbers. I lean over. Will I play it? Probably not. But I do lean the over there. Then moving on, we got Morozov. They've set him at 38.5, and he's only covered this 1 of 3 times. That was when he fought Khalid Taha. And, I do think this goes over as well. I just don't want to really play it because I think he does have a chance to spark Paiva, and if he does, he won't get here. I kind of see if he's smart, he's just going to grapple, right? And then I'm going to be concerned about him hitting this number if he's grappling. On the feet, I think he's just as good as Paiva, if not better. Personally, I think he's better. But I just feel like he's going to bring it to the ground, and then it's going to be hard to hit this number possibly. I think it's going to hit, but it's not my favorite spot to play, so I'm not going to play that one. TJ Brown, 57.5. He's covered this 2 of 5 times, 40%. And for this one, yeah, I don't like it again because I feel like he has a chance to spark Shai Leonard on BK. I think that he can sub him, KO him, dominate him, do whatever he wants to him. And because of that, I think he might not need that 57.5 strikes. Against Charles Rosa, he only needed 58. He did get 82 against Kai Kamaka, but that's because Kai Kamaka gave him that kind of fight. And he's going to be fighting a dude who can't strike for jack diddly squat. So I do like Brown to finish, and because of that, I'm not going to be playing the strikes over or under. Oberg, 56.5. He's covered this 2 or 3 times, and kind of like this. I know a lot of people think that Oberg is about to get wrestled and whatnot, and I personally don't think so. I understand that that's probably going to be Nchukwu's game plan, but I'm not sure what's showing us to suggest that he's this significantly good wrestler that's going to be keeping Oberg down. Like, yeah, he's grappled. Yeah, he's looked okay grappling, but like, I think people are getting a bit ahead of themselves and wanting to fade Oberg. But what can you do? Either way, not under. I think he goes over on his strikes. I think that he'll be able to stay up. I think it'll be a 3-round fight, and I think that he's going to definitely be able to tee off a bit and land at least 56.5 strikes. So I do like the over there. Moving right along, we've got Chris Curtis, who they've set at 37.5 strikes, and he's covered this 2 or 3 times. And this is another one where I kind of lean over, right? So there's 2 concerns, and the concerns are A, he finishes Vieira quickly with strikes, like he did with Phil Hawes, and that's that 21 number that you see it there on the screen. Or Vieira finishes him, right? Where he also, if Vieira's going to finish him, it's going to be early. Otherwise, it probably won't happen. And if he does that, he'll go under. But personally, what I see happening is Vieira really working for those takedowns, maybe getting them. I'm not sure about holding him down. And I think he's going to tire out. Curtis is eventually going to find that chin. But I think that he'll probably be able to land more than 37.5. So I am leaning over. Nurmagomedov, we already went over when I started this chart. I love it. He checks off both of my things for going under. The Dagestani blanket wrestling, plus the spinning kicks and no striking. You know, couldn't ask for a better spot. That's why I always bet the under on Said Nurmagomedov as well. Not even part of the same family, but the fighting style is very similar. So, yeah, I'm under on Nurmagomedov for sure. Moises, 35.5 strikes. He's covered this 5 of 9 times, and I'm kind of feeling this one, actually. I kind of am. You look at his last 2 fights. All right. It was Islam Makhachev, and then he got sparked by Yoel Alvarez. But before then, right, fought Alexander Hernandez, 3-round fight, close fight, 53 strikes covered. Fight before that, Bobby Green, 3-round fight, close fight, 42 strikes covered. I think this is going to be another close fight. I think Moises live for a finish the whole time. But I think the 35.5 strikes won't be difficult for him to hit. So I do like this one, actually. I like it enough to even bold it. And we're going to go over here. I like that a decent amount. And then moving right along, we've got Badeau. They've set him at 50.5. He's covered this 2 or 3 times. And, you know, I'm tempted. I am tempted. It's going to be such a greasy fight. Like, if he doesn't chin check Parisian quick, this number will hit for sure. He might chin check him. This is such a sloppy fight. Like, I already have a unit, just over a unit on Badeau, so I don't want much more at stake on this fight. So I won't be playing that. Rakhmonov, they've set him at 32.5. He's covered this also 0 of 3 times. And this is similar to the Nurmagomedov angle. I feel like he probably also won't need it. My one hesitancy is that I think Neil Magny might make him work. And if he's making him work, he's probably going to need to go over 32.5. Like, that's not a lot of strikes, you know, for 3 rounds. It's just Rakhmonov doesn't normally go 3 rounds. That's why he's never covering this. So I lean under there. Excuse me. And Sarukian, 86.5 in 6 fights. He's only covered this once. But none of those fights were 5-rounders. And none of them were with anyone as tough as Gamrot, other than the Islam fight, obviously. So 86.5. I kind of see it hitting, right? I see it hitting because, like I mentioned before, I think this is just going to be a 5-round war, absolute war. And they're going to need to strike. I don't see either guy really being able to grapple the other one too successfully. I think they'll get takedowns. They both will, but I'm not sure that either is going to get control time. So I am kind of leaning over here. I could definitely see that happening. All right. And now we're up to the next category. We're up to fantasy scores. And it's really important to talk about how this is different than the DraftKings scoring system. All right. There's two main differences, and they're very important. The first one is the reason why Nurmagomedov might not do as well here as he does in DraftKings if he wasn't picking up these finishes. He is, so it doesn't matter. But the first difference is control time. DraftKings scores control time, so blanket wrestlers can score big time for you. They don't have to do anything on the ground. They just need to rack up the control time, and DraftKings will score it for you. PrizePicks doesn't do that. They'll score a takedown. They'll score a sub attempt. They'll score a takedown defense, but they're not going to score control time. And that's the second difference, is that takedown defense points. DraftKings doesn't do that. PrizePicks does, and it doesn't sound like it's relevant, but it really, really is, because it makes a difference. For example, Sarukian, not Sarukian. Who's a better example? None of these guys really, but let's say one of Durden's previous opponents, right? If Durden shot, let's call it 13 times, and he missed 10, that's 30 points that his opponent would have picked up. Let's say JP buys in this instance. If he defends 10 takedowns from Durden, that's 30 points. And it's something we got to consider when we want to bet someone's under, because we might be right, and then they get a few takedown defenses, and we end up losing our spots. So just some things to consider. And now I'll run through the criteria real quick. Know the stuff by heart now, so that's pretty cool. Strikes are 0.6 points per strike. Takedowns are 6 points. Takedown defense is 3. Sub attempt is 5. Knockdown is 12. First round finish is 100 points. Second round finish, 75. Third round finish, 50 points. Fourth round finish, 35, I want to say. And fifth round finish is 25, 20 points for a decision win. And yeah, so let's go through this. First up, we got Jinyu Frey. Her under-over is set at 75.5. She's covered this only 1 of 4 times. And the reason I have under is because, look, she's already showed in one of her wins against Gloria DePaula that she can score low in a win. And why was that? For the exact same reason that I was just explaining with the blanket wrestling. They don't score that here. And she was blanketing DePaula for 2 rounds. So she didn't get points for those rounds, really. It's going to be the same story here, in my opinion. Vanessa Demopoulos is going to give up those takedowns. She's going to go to her back. She's going to let Frey do her thing. Because of that, I think that even in a victory, Jinyu Frey is not going to cover 75.5 points here. I think that it's also possible that Frey gets caught with an armbar from guard, the classic, and then this also doesn't hit. So you've got a few ways to hit this, and I do like that spot quite a bit. Then you got Bautista. He set at 83.5. He's covered this 3 of 5 times in the UFC. And for this one, man, I'm not feeling it either way. I just don't know. He can get a finish. He can win a grimy decision where he won't cover. He could, if Kelleher's shooting a lot, kind of like Jay Perrin did, he can rack up a ton of takedown defense points. There's just so many unknowns here. I don't want to touch this one. JP buys 70.5. Same difference for me why I won't be playing. And, not too many unknowns right here. We don't know what he's going to look like against someone who's not Montel Jackson or Bruno Silva. Both guys, I think, are significantly better than Cody Durden. I think the move is either don't play this if you think Buys wins. Just don't play it at all. And if you think Durden wins, you should definitely play the under here, because how the hell is Buys going to hit this if he loses? So Morozov, they've got him at 76.5. And honestly, I kind of like over here. He covered it against Taha, and I feel like this is going to be just as dominant, if not more. And I expect a finish here. So I actually do like his over. 76.5 isn't that high. You don't see that often with the male fighters. So I do like that spot. Then you got TJ Brown. He's set at 87.5. He's covered this 3 of 5 times. And this is another one where I kind of think it's going to go over. Because, like I mentioned before, Nerd BK, I just don't think much of him. And I keep seeing people say things like, oh, I can't believe I'm going so heavy on TJ Brown. TJ Brown, can't believe it. Bro, what the hell did TJ Brown ever do that we're calling him bad all of a sudden? Like, I swear, some people in this space, including me, blow my own mind. It's just crazy to me. Either way, though, let's keep going. I do think TJ Brown sparks him, so I think he probably goes over there. Oldberg, 72.5. He's covered this 2 or 3 times. I think he probably covers this. It's a low score, like I mentioned before, but it's going to be such a grimy fight. I don't know. I lean over. I don't know if I want to play it, though. Curtis, 84.5. He's covered this 3 or 3 times because he keeps getting first or second round finishes. But, I mean, look, I think he gets another finish, right? I'm on the Curtis side, so obviously I think he gets a KO. Concerned a bit about a Vieira win, which would definitely mean that I'm going under. So I don't know. I'd rather just keep my money line play on Curtis. So that's going to be that for there. Then you got Nurmagomedov. They've set him at 111.5. He's hit this both times in the UFC. Too high. I don't want to play that. It's too high. Moises under. I'm playing this one for sure. They've set him at 94.5. He's covered this only 2 of 9 times. And even in his victories, he's not really hitting this. Even when he scores high in a victory with that 80, he's not really hitting this. So, again, I think that it's possible he gets a finish, but if not, this is gonna be a really low scoring fight for both him and Giagos. So I do like the under a lot. 94.5. They're kind of expecting him to get a first or second round finish. And I think it's live, but I don't think it's necessarily for sure gonna happen. So I kind of like the under there. Bordeaux, 78.5. He's never hit this in the UFC, never quite close. Not going to play it. If he knocks out Parisian like I think he can, he'll cover this. So Rakhmonov, 110.5 is what they set it at. He's covered this 2 of 3 times, so 67%. What do I want to do with this one? I don't know. I don't really know. Feel like he probably covers it also, but I don't like playing the hundreds. Even when I think the person wins for sure, even by sparkage, I don't like playing the high numbers because like they can still manage to not get it, right? Rakhmonov finished Prazeres in round 2, didn't cover this. So do I really want to bet on him getting a round 1 finish? I would do it on the book if I really thought so. So Tsarukian, 106.5. I think this hits. He's hit it in his last 3, and none of those were even a main event. None of them were 5 rounds. Now he's got 5 rounds to work, put together stuff. I'm hesitant because I don't think he'll be getting many takedown points, which he gets sometimes, and sometimes that carries his score. And if he's not getting them here, because Gamrot's also a good wrestler, is he going to strike enough to get 106.5 points? He can. I don't want to bet on it. And now the last category of prize picks before we move right along, we've got takedowns. So for takedowns, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? You think someone's going to get their takedowns, play the over. You think they don't, play the under. So Jinyu Frey, 1.5. She's covered this 1 of 4 times. Not covering it often, but I think this is the spot. And I do think she hits it. I've already played her. I like it quite a bit. And I've mentioned it several times now. I just don't think that Demopoulos is going to be fighting it. I think she's going to say thank you every time Frey takes her down, similar to how Yoel Alvarez fights. So because of that, if Jinyu Frey's already going to be trying to wrestle, and now you tell me Demopoulos is probably also going to want to go on her back, 1.5 takedowns. That's just 2. So I do like the over. Durden, 2.5. He's only covered this 1 of 4 times. And look, you can look at this in 2 ways, right? You can look at it, Durden could hit this because he'll be taking JP Buys down, but Buys can wrestle well as well, so he'll be popping back up, and Durden could keep getting those takedowns. Or you can look at it and say, yeah, Durden's going to be shooting, but JP Buys has as good wrestling, so he'll be able to keep it up on the feet. I'm not sure which way to look at it. Again, JP Buys is so hot and cold. Like, he came in there against Montel Jackson and was out wrestling him at first. So you really don't know what you're getting with him. And because of that, I can't play it. Morozov, 2.5. This is too high for me. He's covered this only 1 of 3 times. And while I do think he'll absolutely dominate Paiva on the ground, that's also why I wouldn't play this. Because if he's so dominant on the ground, is he going to need 3 takedowns? Very well might not. So I'm not going to play that one. Vieira, 1.5. He's covered this 4 times. So this might be a spot, especially because Chris Curtis is so tough and he'll be fighting to get up. I don't want to play it just because I think Curtis might spark him. I think Vieira might spark Curtis. And in either of those scenarios, 1.5 might not get covered. But I think it's a solid look. Then you got Nurmagomedov, 2.5. He's covered this 1 of 2 times. And again, I don't like betting on guys like this for the takedowns because while if he wants to get 3 takedowns, he can do it without even trying here. He might not need it, and it's as simple as that. Then you got Moises, 1 of 5 in 9 fights. He's only covered this 2 times, so 22%. And I'm not interested here. I think that Giagos is the better wrestler, if anything. So if anyone's going to be shooting, I think it's going to be Christos Giagos. So if anything, I would play the under here, but I'm not interested. And then Rakhmonov, 1.5 takedowns is what it's set at. He's never covered this because, like I keep mentioning, he just hasn't needed it. And I'm not going to bet that he's going to need it now, although he might because Magny's a tough dude. I think that Shafkat should be fine, so I'm not going to be playing that. And that's it. We just ran through prize picks. Sorry if my voice is a bit off or if I'm a bit lower energy. I think I got sick in Austin, which kind of sucks, but doing my best. Feel like we're doing okay. We're definitely doing okay on time. Only 30 minutes, and we're already done with the prize picks section, so we're going to move right along. And we're going to quickly go through Underdog Fantasy. And I say quickly because most of their stuff is identical to what PrizePicks has, except for a few other things. But I did forget to fill in rival spots. I'm going to do that live with you guys right now. But let's start from the top. So first off, significant strikes. They did everybody who was already on PrizePicks, but their numbers did differ just a tiny bit. I'll run right through this because we pretty much just did this. Jinyu Frey, the number's not that different to change my answer of thinking that it might go under because of the ground control. Bautista, my answer doesn't change that. I don't want to bet at too many unknowns of how the fight will go. JP Buys, again, answer's not changing. I think it'll probably go over. I think they're going to be fighting on the feet quite a bit, but too many unknowns with JP Buys so far, so I'm not going to play that one. Morozov, similar story. He might not need these strikes to win this fight. If Paiva keeps on the feet, yeah, this is going to hit, but I don't want to play it. And if I was going to go over, I would do it on PrizePicks, which has it at 38.5. TJ Brown, they said even higher than PrizePicks. Got no interest there. Like I said, I think he could just run through Shailan. Olberg at 61.5. I wouldn't bet his under ever. Not ever, but not here. So if I'm going over on his strikes like I spoke about, it's going to be on PrizePicks, which is 56.5 compared to 61.5 on Underdog Fantasy. The spot that they do give us that's even better here than it is on PrizePicks is the Nurmagomedov under. Check that out. They've set it at 44.5. PrizePicks had 38.5. So we're getting an entire extra 6 strikes here to work with. So if you like the under on PrizePicks, which I loved, you got to love this one. I mean, I'm going to be hammering this one. So that's a dope spot. I really like this one right here. We'll even do this. Next up, Moises. Again, the number's higher here, and I lean over, so I would go on PrizePicks. But Doe, I want nothing to do with that. Rakhmonov, it's 32.5 on PrizePicks, 38.5 here. And it really, look, I think he goes through Magny fairly easy and doesn't need this. But if you think Magny puts up a fight, which I've been back and forth, I wanted to bet Magny originally. If you think Magny puts up any kind of fight, you got to imagine he'll cover the 38.5 with Rakhmonov. I just don't want anything to do with this. And Sarukian, I'm not going to play it for the same reasons that I'm not playing it on PrizePicks. Just don't know exactly how this fight's going to play out, although I do think it's going to be a striking affair because they're both such good grapplers. Now, for the takedowns, most things are the same, but there's a few spots that weren't available on PrizePicks, so we'll go through those especially. But Jinyu Frey, 1 takedown here, so I do suggest betting it here as well. If you're going to do both, do both. If you're only going to do one, app, I suggest doing Jinyu Frey over 1 takedown on Underdog Fantasy over doing Jinyu Frey over 1.5 takedowns on PrizePicks. It just gives you a little bit more of a cushion. So I do really like this one right here. I think a great play is just playing Jinyu Frey over 1 takedown, Umar Nurmagomedov under, what is it, 44.5 strikes. I love it. I love that play right there. Then we got Batista. They set him at 1.5 takedowns. I thought this was interesting. And what was even more interesting was I totally didn't remember him getting 4 takedowns against Jay Perrin. So that was surprising. Do I think he's going to be getting the takedowns here? No, I really don't. I think if anyone's going to grapple, it's going to be Kelleher. So I lean under here. Not exactly sure what they saw when they were deciding this, but I'm not going to be hitting this. Oh, I meant to put something up when we got to the here. It's not as fun anymore because the time has passed. But this is in regards to the Umar thing. Fire the intern. Because I'm not sure why they decided 44.5 strikes is a good spot. So fire the intern. But moving on, we've got we got JP Buys. He was also not on PrizePicks. They've got him set at 1.5 takedowns, and he's covered this 1 of 4 times in the UFC. And again, just the same story as I keep going through. Too many unknowns with him. He can come out here like he did with Montel Jackson and just start throwing Durden around. It's possible. It's possible he can't take Durden down at all, so he'll go under. Not playing that one. Morozov, not playing it. Same reason I didn't play it on PrizePicks. Brown, 3 takedowns. He's covered this 3 of 5 times in the UFC. And he could have hit this. I just don't know if he will. He's literally fighting a wrestler, so that sucks at striking. So his best bet is just striking. But if he wants to grapple, he wants to wrestle, he could probably get it too. I'm just not going to play it. Oberg, 0.5 takedowns. This caught my attention because, like, why? Why set it like that? But then you think about it, like he did shoot twice in his last fight. What if he's trying to mix up that game? I don't know. I don't really see him doing it, so I don't think I'm going to play it. But I do normally love those 0.5 spots because you literally just need 1 takedown. And it could be a trip, a fall, anything that counts as a takedown, you're good. Anyways, Nurmagomedov, 2.5, same as PrizePicks, same story. He just might not need it. Moises, same as PrizePicks. Again, I just don't think that he's the wrestler here, so I lean under, if anything. Rakhmonov, 1.5, same as PrizePicks. And again, don't want to play it just because he might not need it. Sarukian, 2 takedowns, and he's only covered this 1 of 6 times, which is kind of surprising. But again, you can look at this in 2 ways. You can look at it. He'll be taking Gamrot down. Gamrot will get back up, and Sarukian can get more than 2 takedowns easy that way. Or Gamrot's so good with takedown defense, Sarukian can't get any at all. I think it's more than likely he can get at least 2. He took Islam down once, right? So I don't know, but I just don't think that's worth playing. And then I've got my little other section. That's because they include stuff like finish, sub, finish, which PrizePicks is not. So we got Curtis finish. They set it obviously at 0.5. He can only finish once per fight. I mean, I guess depending on the referee, you can argue that. But normally you can only finish somebody once in 1 fight. And, he's done this already 3 of 3 times in the UFC. I think it's live. Will I play it? Probably not. But it's live. I think he wins. I think he wins by KO. So Nurmagomedov sub. I think it's so funny that they do these. But 0.5, of course. He's covered this both times in the UFC. Again, I think this hits. I think all 3 of these hit. I'll skip straight to the point. They're all 100%. I think those don't change. The one I'm least confident in, I guess, is Curtis. But I think these all hit, all 3 of those. And then for the rival spots, let me run through those real quick. And I'll mention if I see anything I like. And then we're going to go right into monkey knife fights. All right, Underdog Fantasy, Rivals. Okay, I'm going to run through this real quick. I don't like the significant strikes for Taruki and Gamrot. I don't like the takedown spread. It's interesting, though. They lean Gamrot getting more takedowns than Taruki, and that's interesting. Shavkat, Neil Magny strikes, not interested. Takedowns, not kind of interested. Shavkat over Magny on takedowns. I kind of like that. Magny gets 0.5 spread. That's an interesting one. I feel like Shavkat should cover that pretty easy. Let's see. What else? Josh Persian, Badeau, not going to do that one. For their takedowns, also not going to do that one. Yagos Moises, no takedowns, no strikes. On the Umar Manis one, not going to play either of those. Nothing on Curtis Vieira. I like Oberg to get more significant strikes than Tafon. That's a good spot in my opinion. Takedowns for those two, I don't like. Finishes for those two, I don't see a reason to bet that. Strikes for Shailan and TJ Brown. I would go TJ Brown, but they're giving Shailan a plus 19.5 strike spread. And if Brown finishes him, that might not cover that. So no dice for me. Nothing on those takedowns. Nothing for Paiva, Morozov. Nothing for Bies Durden. Nothing for Batista Kelleher. I guess I'm curious about Jinyu Frey over Vanessa Demopoulos significant strikes. Demopoulos is getting a spread of 0.85, but I mean 8.5, but I don't know. Oh, this spot I like though. This is ridiculous. What are they thinking? Finally, time to throw this up. So for this one, they set the rivals at Jinyu Frey and Vanessa Demopoulos for takedowns at evens. There's no spread, so I think that's very silly of them. Because I don't see Demopoulos taking down Frey even a single time, while I see Frey taking Demopoulos down at least twice. So I really like that spot right there. And that's it for Underdog Fantasy. Those are the two apps that are very similar, PrizePicks and Underdog Fantasy. Hopefully, I've helped you guys find some dope spots. But now we're going to go right along, and we're going to hop onto Monkey Knife Fight. So this is still a brand new app to me. I am still learning. I'm still learning how to kind of give you guys the data and how to kind of break this stuff down for you. So the first thing I want to talk about is strikes, right? So I didn't know this the first time I played, and I'm very lucky that I didn't lose everything because I thought this is significant strikes like it is on PrizePicks and Underdog Fantasy, but it's not. It's actually regular strikes, and that makes a world of difference. It makes a really big difference, and that's why all the numbers here are different than the PrizePicks ones. I got all the percentages for their regular strikes. We got that going. And then Fantasy Score, they use the same criteria as PrizePicks, and the scores are normally the same as they were on PrizePicks or similar, at least for the favorites. Now, PrizePicks doesn't include underdogs, and that's where this stuff gets interesting because Monkey Knife Fight, you can bet over under on the underdogs fantasy scores as well. Because they're the underdog, they set their score lower. Because of that, you can hit it in two ways, right? You can hit it, A, if you think the underdog wins, or B, if this underdog has already shown in other losses that they can still score high, right? So that's why when you look over at the past numbers column over here, the numbers for the favorites are exactly the same as they were on PrizePicks. However, for the underdogs, I only included their losses because in a win, they're going to cover all of these points. They're going to cover even 48.5. They're going to cover that in a win. In a loss, not necessarily. So that's what we're looking for. That's something interesting, in my opinion, that we can try to find. So that's how I do that. I won't be talking about the fantasy scores for the favorites because I've already done that twice now. Not twice. I've already done that in the first portion of the show. But I will talk about the underdogs, and I will talk about everybody's strike sets. We're going to go through it from top to bottom because if you've played on Monkey Knife Fight, you know how they do their matchups and whatnot. For me to go through every single possibility would be just too much. So I give you the chart. I go through the chart, and then hopefully you can use it to make your picks yourselves. So starting off from the top, we'll start with strikes first. We'll go all the way. Actually, no, we'll go through both at the same time. We'll do strikes first for the pair, then we'll do fantasy score for the pair. So in our main event, Sarukian versus Gamrot. One second, I got a cough. There we go. My bad. But they got Sarukian strikes set at 101.5. Remember, this is not significant strikes. And they've got Gamrot set at 65.5. You could see I've already put over because I like the over there. Gamrot has only covered this 1 of 4 times, but that's because he's been so damn dominant ever since his Guram fight. I don't think he's going to have the ability to be that dominant here. So I think he's going to have to throw this many strikes at least. And this works because if they do grapple, I don't have to worry about significant strikes not counting because regular strikes are always counted. I was looking at Kevin Holland last week. They gave him hundreds of strikes on his thing that weren't significant. You know why? Because he does this stuff. You know, when he's fighting and like the guy's got him up against the fence and he's just hitting them in the head, they be counting those. So I do like that for Gamrot. And then for Tsarukian, I don't like it just because I don't know. I lean yes, but it's a high number and I don't like it. So I wouldn't play their direct their direct pairing. I would look for a pairing where Gamrot strikes are an option. But and then looking at their fantasy scores, Tsarukian just about as high as it was on PrizePicks. If you want to see my breakdown for that, just go back a little bit. I will have timestamps on this video, so everything should be easy to access once I got it up and uploaded. But anyways, Gamrot, 48.5 is the fantasy score they set him at. In his one loss to Guram, he scored 61.2 points. So I do think he'll cover this again in a loss. Will I bet it? I don't know. But I kind of like it. All right. Moving right along. We got Rakhmonov versus Magny. Rakhmonov, they've set at 59.5 strikes. He's covered this 1 of 3 times. And Magny, they set at 46.5, and he's covered this 8 of 10 times in his last 10 UFC fights. So, again, I'm not playing this for the same reason I haven't played them on the other 2 apps. I think Rakhmonov might be live to just finish Magny too quick. So, not interested. Fantasy score, not interested. It's too high for me. The Magny 29.4 kind of catches my attention, but in 7 losses, he's only covered it twice, so I am concerned he can't cover it again. So I'm not going to play him. Parisian versus Badeau. They've set Parisian at 59.5. He's covered this 2 out of 5 times, 40%. And they set Badeau's strikes at 64.5, and he's covered this 1 of 3 times, 33%. Now, the breakdown for these guys with their strikes isn't much different from their significant strikes because they're not grappling much. So there's not going to be much of a difference in those numbers. So my answers for either of those don't change. I don't want to touch it. And the same goes for their fantasy scores. I don't want to touch Badeau's fantasy score because I don't know. I think in a win, he won't cover. I mean, I think in a decision win, he won't cover. I think in a finish win, he covers. In a loss, obviously, he doesn't. So I don't know. For Parisian, 32.5, I kind of like that. He's covered this 1 of 2 times in a loss. In that loss against Parker Porter where he put up like over 130 strikes, like that helped. I just don't like it. I wouldn't play it. Moises versus Giagos. They've set Moises at 62.5, and he's only covered this 1 time in his 9 UFC fights. So that's something to consider. Maybe going under. Giagos, 52.5. He's covered this 4 of 10 times. The reason I'm hesitant is because if they do grapple, this is live, you know? They'll have plenty of opportunities to throw strikes at each other on the ground that wouldn't be significant, but that count here. So, not interested. I am kind of interested in these 2, though, in their fantasy scores. I'm interested in Giagos over 25.5, and I'm interested in Moises under 94.5. And that's not because I think Moises loses. I think Moises wins. But I just think that it's going to be a much closer fight. And you look at his wins like against Bobby Green and Alex Hernandez, they're very low scoring. So that's that. Moving right along, we got Manis versus Nurmagomedov. Manis, they've set at 39.5. He's covered this 2 or 3 times, whereas Nurmagomedov, they've set at 56.5, and he's never covered this. So Nurmagomedov, same reasons that I'm going under on his significant strikes are going to be the reasons why I'm going under on his regular strikes. And for Manis, I can't get there because I think he's going to get just taken down and mauled. So I've got to lean under there as well. And then for their fantasy scores, I'm not playing Nurmagomedov for the same reason I explained before. I just don't like these high 100 numbers. And then Manis, 13.5 is tempting. We don't have a reference point because he's never lost in the UFC. But, you know, if he would have gotten finished by Gravely in that first round, I don't think he would have covered here. So that's the concern. Like, will Nurmagomedov really spark him, not let him get anything? It's possible. So I'm not going to play that one. Then we got Chris Curtis versus Rodolfo Vieira. And if you're on the Vieira side, you've got to love his fantasy score, right? Because they've set him at 30.5 on the fantasy score. And if you think he wins, like, that's light work. And he almost covered it in his loss when he got submitted. So you kind of got to like that, honestly. Even I kind of like that. I feel like 30.5, he can maybe even hit that if I get my way and Curtis knocks him out. So I kind of like that. Totally skipped their strikes, though. Curtis, 54.4. He's covered this 2 or 3 times. And Vieira, 42.5. He's covered that 1 or 4 times. I don't like either for the strikes. I would lean Vieira over, but I don't like either, really. Sorry about that. My guy Jorge Sandoval in the chat. Thank you for pulling up, brother. On Rivals, they had Frey at 0.5 takedowns, took it in a few lines. I don't know if you were here a few minutes ago, but I actually went through that, and I was shocked because it was evens without any spread. And now seeing what you're saying, that they gave the spread to Frey, I mean, good stuff locking that down. You really got the good one. They moved it now. Now it's even. Jinyu Frey or Demopoulos to get more takedowns with no spread. So that's a very good line you got, man. I think you're going to hit. Knock on wood. But moving right along, we've got Oberg versus Nchukwi. They set Oberg at 92.5 strikes. He's only covered this 1 of 3 times. Nchukwi, they set at 75.5. He's covered this 2 of 5 times. And I don't like this. I don't like this because I don't know why the number's so high for Oberg. He got it when he teed off against Kennedy, but that was a whole completely different stylistic matchup. If anything, I would lean the over strikes on Nchukwi because if someone's going to get control time on the fence, I think it's going to be him. And all he needs to do is throw those little strikes. Those are all going to be counted. So I kind of like him over, not Oberg, even though I think Oberg wins. But you look at their fantasy scores, I already spoke about Oberg on the PrizePicks. But for Nchukwi, 34.5, this is another one of those where it might be worth looking at the loser to go over his number because 34.5 is pretty low for a guy like Nchukwi who's going to put it on him, who was winning that his last fight that he lost at 25.8. He was winning until he got caught. So I do kind of want to go over on him, especially with so many people thinking he wins, That way I can cover my butt in both ways. I could still win my bet and hit this, or I can hit this and not hit my bet. So I'm curious about the over there. Next up, we've got Nurmagomedov versus Brown. They set Brown at 76.5 strikes, Nurmagomedov at 70.5. I like his under for sure. Look, he hit this when he was able to tee off on the ground, and he's not going to be able to tee off on the ground. Like, how? How? And I really don't see it. I really like under here, honestly. I didn't even catch it until just now. And for his fantasy score, I'm talking all this yak, so I've got to assume that it's going to go under as well, right? If I think Brown sparks him, how is he going to go over that? Moving on. Let's see. Oh, yeah, so and then for Brown, his strikes, I don't want to play because he could spark him. Fantasy score, lean over. Don't really want to play it. Same reasons as I mentioned on PrizePicks. Then we got Morozov versus Paiva. Morozov, they set at 66.5 strikes. Paiva at 56.5. And again, same reasons as before. I just don't want to play it in case Morozov runs through him. That's the only reason I don't want to play it. And then for the fantasy score, I do like over for Morozov. I think that's an unusually low number for a guy like him in this kind of spot. And for Paiva, 26.5. He's only covered this one time in a loss out of his 3 UFC losses. So I'm not loving it. And then let's move right along. We got JP Bays versus Cody Durden. Bays is set at 58.5 strikes. Durden at 62.5. Bays has never covered this in 4 fights. Durden's covered it 2 of 4 times, so 50%. And, again, I just don't know how this fight's going to play out just yet. Kind of expect 2 grapplers turning into strikers. Durden can put forward a good output. He can cover that number, and I'm more confident in him doing that than I am on Baez doing that. But I don't want to play it. But for the fantasy score, man, if you like Durden, you got to be all over that. 44.5. He's never hit this in a loss, so I'm not going to play it because I think he can lose. But a lot of people are on the Durden side, and if you think he wins, I think you should play this, especially since he opened as a favorite, It would seem that you've got the value there. Then you have Batista versus Kelleher. Batista at 86.5 strikes. He's covered it 2 of 5 times. Kelleher is set at 68.5. And you'll see I already wrote under there. And, man, he's covered this one time in 10 fights in the UFC, in his last 10 UFC fights. He has more than 10. But in his last 10, he's only gone over this once. And I think this might be the kind of style fight where, again, he won't go over. So I kind of like that spot, the under. And then for his score, 29.5, I don't like that because I do think that while Batista should win, I think he's not perfect. And I think that Kelleher could be live to hit him with something and finish him. So I don't really want to play that in particular. And then for the very last one, we got Jinyu Frey versus Vanessa Demopoulos. They got Frey set at 82.5 strikes, Demopoulos at 69.5. Frey's covered this 1 of 4 times, Demopoulos 1 of 3. And I kind of like it for Frey because I think she's going to be on top for 3 rounds and she's going to have to hit ground and pound or they're going to get stood up. So I kind of lean over, but it's such a high number, so I'm hesitant. And then for their fantasy scores, I want nothing to do with either. Jinyu Frey, 75.5. Like I mentioned on PrizePicks, I might go under this because even in a win, she'll go under here. And then Demopoulos, do I want to play her over on this when she's only covered it once? Not really. So I won't be playing there. And then we've got, and then the very last thing. So if you've ever played Monkey Knight Fights, they offer this thing called Knockout Kings, which is pretty cool. You pick up to you pick 3 guys who you think could get a knockout, and then you decide, do you want to make it so that you only have to hit 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, or all 3? And obviously your payout's going to depend. I only do the 1. And for this week, I'm going with, I already played it, so I know what it is now. It's no more of this. This is my play. Badou, Olberg, Brown. I feel like one of these guys should get a KO. I'm nervous about the TJ Brown one, but it was either him or Shavkat, and I think they're both live for submissions. I just think that TJ has the bigger advantage here on the feet, so if he uses that, he should get a KO. So I like those 3, and that's a wrap, guys. That's it for the show. We will not do DraftKings today. Honestly, I don't have that great of a read this week. Obviously, I'm all over. I guess I have one suggestion, right? So I'm all over, obviously, just like everyone else. I like Umar. I like Shavkat, obviously. Everybody's going to have them. For cash, though, I would highly suggest having Gamrot in your cash games because, man, he's not going to, like, what's worst case scenario? Like, I don't even know, 50 points maybe worst case? I see him doing pretty well in a loss. I see him losing, but I see him doing well enough in a loss, and he's like, what, 7,400? So just my one suggestion for cash. It's a rough week with underdogs. I had to play way too much Vanessa Demopoulos just because I couldn't find other people down there I want to trust, but whatever. So thank you guys for tuning in. We killed it in under an hour, so that's dope. You guys will see me again on Thursday at the Bet Elevator with Lou on the MMA Engine channel at, oh my goodness, at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Can't mess up the time. Lou's going to come after me. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys win your best this week and have a great one. Thank you, Kiarix. You too, my man. You too. Have a good night, guys.